Test, test.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 7th, 2025 Cottonwood Heights City Planning Commission Business Session Meeting. Before we get started, are there any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose? Seeing none, we'll move on. The first item on the agenda is general public comment. This is a time for the public to make a comment about items that are not on the agenda. So if you have something you'd like to make a comment on the agenda, please wait until that time. And each person would have 3 minutes to talk for a public comment. And we ask that you keep the comments civil, and there's no clapping, there's no outbursts during that time. So is there anyone here for general public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close general public comment time. The first item on the agenda is project CUP 25004, a public hearing and potential action on a request by Bento Viana on behalf of Uneo de Vegetal Church, UDV, for a conditional use permit to operate a church at a former Wells Fargo branch at 3425 East Bengal Boulevard.
Okay, we went in quite a bit of detail in the work session, but I'll give a brief overview again for the benefit of those here in the business meeting. This is a request to operate a church within the existing building, previously a Wells Fargo branch building at 3425 East Bengal Boulevard, just short of half an acre in size. And as you stated, the applicant is Bento Viana, representing the UDV church. They are not proposing any major modifications to the building or site. Things like signage, some interior renovations, and maybe retrofitting the drive-through bank canopy would all be covered under typical kind of building permit review. But no major changes being proposed to the site, the building, the landscaping, or anything like that. Staff's recommendation is continuation. Churches are allowed as conditional uses within the neighborhood commercial zone. And then this site is established, so anything not being proposed for upgrade or change or modification, whether it complies with today's ordinances and standards or not, is allowed to continue and considered a legal non-conforming element of that site. Any changes or any conditions imposed by the commission to address any impacts can be imposed on top of that, but they don't have to go bring this entire site and building up to current codes because it already exists. Details of the proposed church use. First of all, the church is formally recognized as a nonprofit religious organization. So it does meet the church use category. Gatherings are proposed to be held the first and third Saturday of each month from 8 p.m. to just after midnight, 12:15 a.m., with the ability to host several additional gatherings per month at the discretion of the church leadership. They've stated that those additional meetings would be on weekday evenings or midday Sundays. Per the applicant's narrative, the congregation size is 47 total members. with the expectation that 40 to 45 members would typically be present at any given gathering. And then per their narrative, much of the congregation consists of families that are carpooling together and that live in the general kind of Cottonwood Heights and Salt Lake area. The site details shown here, the plan on the right here, the parking exhibit is the previous one. This was in the packet. This has since been amended, and I'll cover that in a second. The building is approximately 2,300 square feet, no changes to that. Some minimal space in there would be storage and utility room, but most of that is the usable square footage. The existing parking lot has 15 dedicated parking stalls with the potential to convert several of the under canopy areas, the drive-through teller areas, to additional parking if needed. The original parking plan also proposed overflow parking across the street within the Brighton Point Shopping Center. This plan was amended and sent to staff after business hours just 2 days ago. That overflow parking at the Brighton Point Shopping Center is likely not allowed, just based on the applicant not thinking that they'll be able to obtain owner's permission from that site. So they've submitted a revised plan that converts that canopy into 4 additional parking stalls. And then they've shown areas along the Bengal Boulevard public right-of-way that could accommodate more parking. City code does not allow us to use that to count towards the minimum parking standards, as public parking is available on a first-come, first-served basis by any member of the public. Land use authority in this case, there's kind of 2 key elements to touch on here. One is the conditional use authority. So final decision for this matter lies with the Planning Commission. Conditional uses shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate reasonable anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with applicable standards. And then those conditions themselves also need to be reasonable. And then this property would fall under the purview of the Utah Religious Land Use Act, which is a Utah state code provision that states that government may not impose or implement a land use regulation in a manner that imposes a substantial burden on a person's free exercise of religion unless the burden A, is in furtherance of a compelling government interest, and B, is the least restrictive means of furthering that compelling government interest. So we've interpreted that to mean, you know, the use itself and its operation methodology and days and hours of meeting times and things like that are probably falling under that religious protection. But the impact of the use on the adjacent area, things like noise and traffic and parking and kind of those physical impacts may still be looked at under that conditional use purview. Moving into our impact analysis, we've picked up on 2 potential negative impacts or detrimental effects that could warrant imposing conditions of approval. One being noise and hours of operation. Given that average daily use of this site will be very low, 2 meetings per month, maybe a 3rd or 4th on some months, but again, not a daily use, not being used during peak hours. So not overall, not a huge impact on the surrounding area. But when the use does take place, it operates typically during quiet hours. So noise and light trespass are 2 potential concerns to look at there. The applicant has actually identified these themselves and proposed 2 mitigations to help with that. One would be requiring vehicles to back into the northern parking stalls to avoid headlight trespass into the cul-de-sac area to the north. And then minimizing pre and post-service outdoor socialization and conversations to ensure that those noise hour standards and quiet hours are respected. And then we've just noted any proposed site lighting on top of what's already existing on site would also be subject to the city's outdoor lighting ordinance in terms of when it can be on and how it's shielded and how bright they can be and color temperature and all those things. The city's ordinance is recently updated and adequate to cover those concerns. And then all other noise and light ordinances, nuisance ordinances, and things like that would be applicable on the site. Moving to parking and traffic. Again, daily use is very low, so traffic impact is negligible in staff's analysis. It doesn't operate during peak traffic hours, and when it does operate, many other uses are quiet or closed and not operating. And then Bengal Boulevard is a fairly high capacity roadway. Um, To derive parking requirements for any given use, the city uses a parking generation manual known as the ITE. There's a number of ways to calculate parking based on attendee or member, based on seats, on square footage. There's a number of ways to do it. We typically pick a reasonable way to apply that. That in this case is about half of a stall per attendee. A new development, a brand new church built from the ground up would require, of this size, would require about 24 total parking stalls. They originally proposed 20 to 21, lost some of that overflow, so they've got anywhere between 15 and 18 on their site. Off-street parking code for the city just states that strict adherence to the minimum parking standards is required for newly constructed buildings or any structure or use that is expanded. That's not necessarily this use. It's not expanding its space. It's not constructing a new building. So it's not an automatic trigger to require additional parking to comply with the ITE minimum. That said, we do need to make sure the site can serve its maximum parking impact, especially a church use where all of its parking impact happens at one time in one specific time period. The site ought to be able to accommodate that. There's another provision that allows staff or the Planning Commission to determine whether a deviation from parking standards meets the intent of the parking chapter. That intent being, it can park the use that's proposed. So that is one concern that based on the very late change from the original parking plan to the current one has not been thoroughly reviewed by staff. So we don't have a recommendation on whether the site itself can accommodate, the maximum occupancy that's proposed by this use. On-street parking, while public, is not allowed to count towards minimum required parking. So while they have identified a lot of spaces on Bengal Boulevard to park, we can't necessarily count those and rely on those. So the nature of this use is such that average daily impact is minimal, but all regular gatherings will generate the highest possible impact. As such, the potential impact of a parking shortage is a reasonably anticipated detrimental impact that could be mitigated through a condition imposed by the Planning Commission. Without the availability of adjacent overflow parking, staff recommends continuation to allow for additional analysis and review to determine a reasonable allowable parking reduction on this site, if any. So we would, what that would look like is continuation, and we'd work with the applicant, have them submit some justification and review that, and then bring that back to you at a subsequent meeting to make sure that the site can accommodate its membership. Otherwise, beyond that, the other detrimental effects that we've identified are reasonably mitigated with the conditions proposed. The use is compliant, the site's not changing drastically, so not a lot of other major concerns with this other than just analyzing that parking and coming back with a solid recommendation for you in a month. That being said, this is this is noticed and on the agenda for potential action. So if you feel you have enough information, the commission is certainly able to take a vote on this tonight or make a decision. When and if you're ready for that, we've got model motions for you. Any questions?
I asked the question in the working session, but will this go through a fire code regulation just as far as occupancy goes?
The internal tenant improvement would go, the building permit would automatically trigger fire department review.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So from our standpoint, we're just looking at it from just pure parking components.
Yeah, use and impact. Okay. Now, I do think it would be helpful if we had a parking analysis to know, hey, on average, it's, X members per car, and you can kind of extrapolate that. So if the congregation grows, you kind of know how much expansion room you have. So that could help inform that if there's a concern there.
So right now I see the square footage of the building's about 2329. So with 47, bodies in there, it seems like it is kind of exceeding what I would imagine occupancy would be for a 2,300 square foot building.
That would need to be determined. So that I should also note the use allowance itself would go through fire review before final operation takes place. So they'll look at that if there's issues there. Obviously, they'll have to comply with whatever fire code standards are there.
Perfect.
Any other questions or staff? Nope. I'm sorry, is the applicant here? If you wouldn't mind stepping forward and, because I think we had a couple of questions for the applicant. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Is
Thanks.
there anything you'd like to present or anything further you'd like to add to what was presented?
I don't, no, I don't think so. I would just say we listened to the business meeting and reaching out to the LDS church next door. We originally considered that. Thought that Smith's would be a little easier pathway. We got late notice that it was not an option for us, and we will now pursue reaching out to them.
Thank you for that update. Any questions for the applicant?
My perspective on this so far, it sounds like you want to be a good neighbor. And reading the note that you submitted to Mike Johnson and the discussion that we've had, sounds like you're intending to do that. I am curious, and I did mention this in the work meeting, about the potential for growth in the church. I think that would be a good thing generally if people would be supportive of that. I don't know. It sounds like right now we're kind of near the limit of what this building could accommodate in terms of parking and capacity inside the building. I don't know what your plans are for that, and wonder if you want to respond to that.
I would say we've been putting our growth on pause. We're currently renting a place, and our growth has been stagnant. We have a waiting list of folks that do want to join. As from my perspective, and I'm a licensed architect in the state of Utah, I've looked into the occupancy for that space with a congregation. I believe it can fit more. I know our current space that we're renting is 724 square feet. This open space is over 1,200 from the internal assembly area. So we're confident we can fit and accommodate more folks in that main open space. Parking we identified that as an issue as soon as we went to look at it. Realistically, I live in that neighborhood. I frequent Smith's all the time, and I know how many open parking spots are in that back row. So I'm well aware of its availability and at our times that we use it from a pragmatic standpoint. So I'm confident we can come to some terms and some agreements there if with the LDS church. That'd be great to accommodate our growth for the future. We don't grow really fast. It's a slow growth too. Even though we have a backlog, it tends to grow pretty slow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I will go ahead and open up public hearing now for this project. Is there anyone who is here for public comment for this project? Well, I do have a list of people who would like to speak, but if would you like to speak about this particular project? Yes, now is the appropriate time. I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please go to the microphone and then state your name?
Yeah, Harry Daniel Sheehan, and most people call me Bud, and I live up around the corner. So I've got a little safety concern. I did some research on this, and essentially this so-called religion is a group of people that get together, have an hallucinogenic drug, and contact spirits. So let me, if I can be just a little more clear on what I did. So this religion is a blend of Catholicism, Afro-Brazilian traditionalism, and Amazonian shamanism. Shamans have the ability to contact spirits through influence that influence human life through altered states of consciousness. And what these guys do is they have this tea that they drink, and it gives them hallucinations. And this is how they get this idea of spiritualism. My concern is that I don't want a bunch of stoned out zombies running around my neighborhood. God forbid they get behind the wheel of a car. I don't want these people in my neighborhood, and this is just an excuse to sit there and get high. Hell, at least in the 60s, when people were getting stoned on acid, they didn't try to legitimize it as a religion. These people want to sit there, drink this tea, and get high, and they can do whatever they want. I just don't want them to be in a position where they could be in a neighborhood and cause problems. And I have research here if you'd like me to submit it or anything like that. But anyway, that's my comment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this? Certainly step up to the microphone and state your name, please.
My name is Gabriel Wynham, and good evening, sir. I am the responsible for this religion here in Salt Lake City. And just, to comment, and I understand that it might be, especially when we look online and see the comments that probably read there, people don't really understand. I've been in this religion, drinking this tea for 25 years now. That's where I started my family, and I grew my family as well. And came here to the United States because I was hired by a company. I am now a citizen of the United States. And we don't do anything related to getting high. We encourage people to be good citizens, to respect the laws, to work hard. I have a very good job because I'm respected. I'm a CEO of a company. And the religion that we do definitely helps me be the person I am to, let's say, perform the way I do as a professional, as a father, as a friend, as a husband. And we encourage people. Part of the work we do is making sure that people do not use drugs. We do not drink. We do not smoke. And we've been able to help a lot of people, sir. Been able to help a lot of people. And anybody who would like to have more information about our religion, I'd be happy to provide. We've been here renting this space now for 4 years, and we are a quiet group. Okay, we get together. We do drink that tea that makes us be more sensible, more sensitive, but it's nothing that people do anything wrong or, let's say, speak loud, party. That's not what we do. And study as much as we can the teaching of Jesus, and that's pretty much what we do. Okay. So if anybody has any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer. Like I said, this has been a big part of my life for 25 years now. Okay. Should I
Thank
sit?
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you have any questions,
If you'd like to speak, please go ahead and come up to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Marcia Whitney.
Could you pull the microphone down just a little bit? Thank
How's
you.
that? Oh, that's much better.
Thank
My name is Marcia Whitney, and I live right around the corner from the bank, the former bank. I moved here 15 years ago from the East Coast. And my understanding, having been here in Utah, you can't smoke. A lot of people are against smoking, caffeine, and alcohol and drugs. And you want to okay a church that's going to meet for 4 hours on a Saturday night and get themselves, I disagree with this man. I know about ayahuasca, and I know it can happen. I don't understand why it's even an option to okay this. The church part, I guess, is fine. It's zoned for that. But in a state that is so closed off to all this other alternative, you're not supposed to drink coffee here for some groups. And you're going to okay somebody drinking hallucinated tea? So I'm very much against that. I know we also had a proposal earlier about putting 10 condos in there. And we obviously, so this is a new try for that space. And also the parking on Bengal in front of that property. You can't park there. It's a bike lane. You cannot park in front of that building. Not on a bike lane. So I think it's hard to understand this gentleman, but I think he's talking about maybe trying to make a deal with the LDS church next door to use their parking. I'm not clear about that. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to make public comment about this application? Okay. Go ahead. No, pardon me? Yeah, this isn't a debate. This is just stay and comment. Thank you for understanding. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to make public comment?
Name is Rusty Ballo. Thank you for your time. I can certainly appreciate everybody's concerns here. It is a little bit different what this church does. You, first of all, are allowed to drink coffee and smoke in the state of Utah. And you can park in front of the building there. There is a bike lane, but there's a clear parking lane as well. At least that's my understanding. I could be wrong. I'd leave that up to staff. But anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciate the concerns here, but good people, as Kevin mentioned, he's a member of the church. He's an architect. I'm a commercial real estate agent in the state of Utah and have been for 25 years and work with very respectable people on a very regular basis. We're not here to party. We're here to grow spiritually. I'd also like to say it's not what we do to contact the spirits. That's not what we're doing. As Gabriel alluded to, we worship Jesus Christ and believe in Christian faith. So just want to make a little clarification there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment for this project. As a planning commission, what further things do we want to discuss?
I would just like to clarify what our purview is here. We are not defining what a church is.
Absolutely not, correct.
We are just looking at the
Land-
use of
the
this
land.
building and space, whether or not we agree with what they're doing. If it's legal, we don't have a lot to say about that.
That is,
This is a federally recognized, vetted through the U.S. Supreme Court, religious nonprofit institution. So yes, you're correct.
all right, thanks for that. Is there any further deliberation? Okay, if not, then yes.
I move to continue the project CUP 25-004 to the June 4th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
I second.
Commissioner Shelton, the motion, and then Commissioner Steinman, second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Polson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mills,
Yes.
Commissioner Steinman,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson, yes. Okay, we will continue this to the June 4th, 2025 meeting. The next item on the agenda is project ZMA 25002, General Plan Amendment, a public hearing and potential recommendation to City Council on a request by Adam Nash for a general plan land use map amendment at 3526 East Fort Union. The applicant is requesting a change from residential office to residential medium density. And also included in that is we're doing the two projects, also a zoning map amendment, same project number, that the applicant's requesting a change from R18 residential single family to R28 residential multifamily.
We'll go over this again just for the benefit of some additional attendees. This is two applications, a land use map amendment and a zone map amendment. We'll process those and present those as one, but it is two separate items. 3526 Fort Union Boulevard is right where the water pipeline project is taking place right now. But it's just shy of 1 acre of residential land that's currently undeveloped at that location. The applicant is Adam Nash, owned by Land Development LLC. The proposal is a land use map amendment from residential office to residential medium density, and I'll explain what that is in just a minute. And then the zone map amendment, a rezone from R18 residential single family to R28 residential multifamily. Staff's recommendation is approval. The land use map amendment is a policy, a kind of a visionary policy that's adopted in the city's general plan that envisions how the city kind of envisions future property being used and developed as we look to the future. For this particular property, that future land use vision or designation is residential office, which allows for some residential use, but it also allows for some neighborhood scale kind of commercial office type uses as well. Examples of residential office, the Highland Drive frontage road north of Fort Union Boulevard. There's a dental office, a Pilates studio, another doctor office and dental office. Those are all residential office products, to just give you an idea of what's possible in that land use type. The applicant is proposing to amend that from residential office to residential medium density, which does not allow that commercial component. Conversely, the zoning is the law as it applies on that property today. And that regulates exactly what you can use a property for, development standards, setbacks, building heights, things like that. So the zoning is the ordinance and the law that applies on that property today. Currently, that property is zoned single-family residential, R18, R standing for residential, 1, single-family, 8, a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet per lot. The applicant is proposing to amend that zoning to R28, again, residential, allowing for 2 family dwellings, so twin homes, duplexes, whatever vernacular you want to use there, and then still a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. So generally, instead of 1 home per 8,000 square feet, it's still 1 building per 8,000 square feet, but 2 units within that building. The residential medium density land use envisions a density of 6 to 10 units per acre. That can correspond with typical twin home, townhouse, duplex type development. That can also correspond with smaller lot single family developments. On this property, which is just about an acre, the maximum we envision could be subdivided into is 3 lots, which would correspond with 6 units. So it's on the lower end of that medium density scale, about 6 units per acre maximum. The R28 zone, as I said, similar development standards to the R18 zone, the big difference being 2 family dwellings can be built instead of single family dwellings. Just to run through development standards there, in the R28 zone, the minimum lot size is still 8,000 square feet, same as R18, which is what it is today. A minimum lot width, it was 65 feet wide. R18, I think, is a 70-foot minimum lot width, so slightly narrower, but not substantially. 35-foot maximum building height, which is the same as every residential property in the city, single family, multifamily, et cetera. 25-foot front setback, 20-foot rear setback, identical to current zoning, single-family zoning. And then 15 feet in total side yard setbacks, and that is divided between both sides, with neither side yard having less than a 5-foot setback from the property line. In R18, that total is 20, the minimum is 8, so it is a little narrower. Some background on this, the original general plan of the city envisioned this whole kind of eastern third of Fort Union Boulevard as having a mixed use, commercial mixed use land use designation, which is even more intensive in what it allows than what it currently is, than even the residential office. In 2019, the city initiated an amendment to its general plan to change that to what you see on the screen here. The dark purple properties on the screen are residential office designation. And then there are several other parcels along here that have land use designations ranging from low density residential to medium density residential, even to still having that mixed use designation. But this property is residential office. Oh, and then I should note, this same applicant on the same property has previously made 2 rezone general plan amendment requests to the city, both in 2022. The first being a rezone from R18 to residential office, which complies with the land use map. That was, approval was recommended by staff and by the Planning Commission. The City Council ultimately denied that. Subsequently, the applicant made this identical request as you're seeing tonight The residential medium density R28 request, again, supported by staff and planning commission, denied by the city council. Ordinance requires at least a year before making that same application again, and it's been about 3. Current entitlement on this land, after those previous votes by the city council, the applicant did proceed with a single-family residential subdivision plan, which was 3 lots that you see here. This was taken all the way to the final approval phase. The only thing left on this is to actually go record the plat, which creates the lots on the ground. But the applicant has designed and engineered this for 3 lots and has that subdivision plat just kind of sitting in final approval. The applicant has also made some of the public improvements required to this. Curb, gutter, and sidewalk have been replaced and upgraded and built. The site's been demoed and cleaned up. So it's just awaiting final plat approval. Prior to doing that, the applicant submitted this application. But this development pattern really does show kind of what's possible in terms of subdividing this property, and that's not going to be substantially different with an R28 designation, other than on these 3 lots, you could build twin homes instead of single-family homes with slightly different development standards. The concept plan submitted by the applicant is shown here. Ideally, his idea would be to utilize the eastern driveway that accesses some existing twin homes to the east, and then create kind of a rear access way, rear entry to these units to eliminate putting driveways out onto Fort Union Boulevard. I do want to note, whatever subdivision comes of this with today's current zoning or the future zoning, if that were to be approved, is subject to full review by the city. They are not beholden to this concept, but this is what they've put forward as an idea they're trying to achieve. In analyzing this, staff's analysis is actually not substantially different than it was several years ago. When we look at the land use, the medium density is not more intense than the current land use designation, residential office. That was kind of the impetus for the original land use change in 2019, was to make that use less intense. Scaled it down to residential office then. This scales it down even, a step further. The adjacent property has residential medium density and RO land use designations currently. And then actually one of them is developed. It has been since the 70s with 2 twin homes on it. The development impact is actually fairly comparable to R18. Lot standards and building sizes and setbacks are similar, not identical, but similar. Parcel access does not impact existing neighborhood streets. The impact of this is onto Fort Union Boulevard, potentially onto that shared private driveway, but that would require the driveway owner's permission. Traffic and density impact between R18 and R28 is different, but the impact is actually minimal in our analysis. I noted in the work session, any single-family home in the city, and actually in the state of Utah right now, is entitled to operate an accessory dwelling unit, a basement apartment, a mother-in-law apartment, to have a second family in that home. That was a state code change from a couple years ago. So theoretically, when we're assessing maximum impact, if 3 single-family homes were developed today, each of those homes has the option to further then operate an ADU within those homes, which could create a 6-family, total on these 3 lots. The R28 zone does not have the ADU option. That's prohibited. We don't have to allow that, and our city code does not. Instead, we allow 2 families, to be in a twin home. So looking at maximum impact, you'd have 6 families and 6 families. Now, not every R18 property operates an ADU. Not everyone chooses to, but they could. So our findings here, proposed zoning and land use designations are compatible with the overall goals of the general plan. The application was made pursuant to city code, and as of tonight, public hearing has now been held in accordance with local and state requirements. Your vote, when you decide to vote on this, will be a recommendation to the city council, who has the final approval authority in legislative applications like this. I've got model motions here. You'll make 2 motions on this, one for the land use and then one for the zoning. Questions?
Just one of the questions that has arisen is about building height.
Yes.
R18, R28, I just want to make sure
35
everyone
feet.
hears it's 35 feet.
Yep.
Regardless of the zone.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the city, we cannot regulate the design of a home, it's just the height. So whether it's pitched roof, flat roof, for single family residential, we do not have the ability to regulate design or architecture for any R18 or R28 development.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? No, okay, thanks. Is the applicant here? If you wouldn't mind stepping forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Adam Nash. I own the property in a company called Land Development, and I've been in the business 43 years now. I know I look too young. I do want to address some things, particularly from the last meeting that I think will carry forward to this meeting. The concerns I'm aware of are a general adversity to multifamily housing, overall density, and traffic. I can address a couple of those. Fort Union Boulevard, per the UDOT traffic study 2024, is designed to carry 87,656 cars, ADT, average daily traffic count. And this design carries forward from, I got to get my east-west right, from 2300 to the Canyon. The current ADT is 9,900. So I'm making the obvious conclusion that 3 houses is insignificant to add to 87,656. I provided further report in the portal and referred to this earlier. This type of housing generates 1.78 ADT. So this subdivision will increase the ADT on Fort Union. We only connect to Fort Union by 5.44 cars. We, myself, are always required to back up and substantiate our claims. So I have, and your portal and your staff has all of these things if you want a finite definition of these. The last time I paid for and made applications for this same request, I didn't think it would be anything but approved, and I failed to properly present and defend my own application, and I can't make that mistake again. The staff and Planning Commission both gave positive recommendations. They supported my application to change the zoning from R18 to R28. The overall density would increase by 3 townhomes. The reported studies prepared by the University of Utah and University of Wyoming conclude that 3 townhomes increase the ADT by 5.44 ADT. So this time around, I want to point out these are obvious things and that it's hardly meaningful to an increase of 5 cars a day to that traffic count. When we brought it to City Council ignored the recommendations of your professional planners, which are hired by Cottonwood City, paid very well. They are very consistent and a very fair planning commission. Yet City Council ignored and denied the application against the recommendations and support of this professional staff and the Planning Commission. Just a side note, Imagine what the staff must think of city council when they do that. No response needed.
Don't speak for staff, please.
Pardon?
Don't speak for
Don't
the
speak
staff,
for
please.
I said I can presume, and I won't. You got it. I've met personally with the neighbors in the townhouses directly east of my property. They are in support of the application to rezone the property to a use that is the same as theirs. Their property was built in 1978 under the same zoning, R28 in Salt Lake County. We are asking for the same zoning in Cottonwood Heights City. Everyone I've met on site that's called on the property and that is aware of the property thinks it's an appropriate use and appropriate housing. A couple of things that have changed since my prior applications. Interest rates were extremely low at the time of my first applications, and now they're relatively high. This directly affects the housing crisis that we face, in particular, forms of affordable housing. Is a significant difference. Other things that have changed in the community is a president and a few other items, but the staff and I hope the city planning and zoning will be consistent in their findings. Thank you again for letting me represent myself, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Do you plan on building these, or are you looking to be selling off the lots as twin home lots?
No, I'm going to most likely JV them with Hamlet Homes. They're a good builder.
So you're looking to JV these with Hamlet Homes?
Yes, and they will build and sell to single family residents.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Help us understand why the ingress egress from the south side.
To the back of the property. These units will be built as rear-loaded garages. The plan I have developed also combines the private drive from the east into my property or into my project. I plan to buy it and give back an easement. We will take care of the maintenance of the road from that point forward. We'll have a HOA to maintain the streets and the open space. The plan was to include safety and overall cleanness to the subdivision rather than propose 7 with the drive, 7 driveway approaches across 250 feet roughly. We don't have siteability problems, but backing out onto 9,900 cars a day is a potential safety issue. So we built these many times and they're well received. We sell everyone that we built, and the plan is the rear access garages rather than the front, so we can consolidate the drives into a single drive point and provide for front doors facing the street.
Can you tell us anything about the proximity that you're anticipating on the west side between the building structures and the adjacent property?
Yes. They built a house about 16 feet from our property line. They built an 8 auxiliary unit, a little closer to that. And they have a garage structure built directly on the property line. Regardless, we respect the homeowners, and I have plans that show that once I pick up the road on the east, that I can shift that over and most likely give 25 feet of setback on our property, although the zoning is considerably less than that.
You say that the shed is on the property line?
On the property line.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now open up public comment for this project. I have some names here that I'll call. And if your name's not here, that's fine. You can, after the time, go ahead and make a comment. We'll start with Dagmas. Is it Dagmar? I apologize.
Hi, my name is Dagmar.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you mind? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dagmar James. I had a whole thing I wanted to say, but I'm a bit confused now. So first of all, so I live close to this property, and I actually did not know that it has been 3 years since we had the same meeting, same discussion, and the same topic as today, because it's been basically empty for 3 years, those lots. And at that time, so I think 2022, the council agreed that we will stick with the 3 single-family homes and not medium-density multifamily units. And I understand what he said, what the builder said about, yes, there's not a big difference with the cars on Fort Union, if it's 6 or 10 cars. But, and on a snow day, we don't even talk about it. But anyway, I think Apple Valley is a very old community. I don't know if you've been there, if you've driven through. Our houses are very simple. They're all single-family homes until you get to Racket Club. And for me, it's more, I just don't want change. I want it to stay the same old, nice, single-family homes. So I'm asking kindly to not approve the rezoning from R18 to R28. But what now confuses me even more when I see this plan, so basically the neighbors who have the house facing, gonna have a driveway and I'm not in their backyard, but right outside their fence. Why can't it be on the other side where all the traffic is? There's many, many homes on Fort Union that back up onto Fort Union. And I mean, that part of Fort Union is not as busy as when you go past Highland or Union down there. So I'm also a bit confused with this plan. I don't like it. So, but yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Johnson.
Hi, my name is Mary Ellen Johnson, and I speak for several of us in this group. In June 2022, almost 3 years ago to the day, the neighbors in the Apple Valley area signed a petition with approximately 90 residents against Mr. Nash's plan of building medium-density multifamily units at 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard. Your committee approved his request. Shortly after your approval, we met with the Cottonwood Heights council members and told them our concerns. They were impressed. We had talked to so many neighbors who had signed the petition. They listened to us and voted against the general plan change from residential office to residential medium density, which we are happy about. It was agreed for the development to include 3 single-family homes. We thought this was a done deal. Here we are again with the same request. Our neighborhood hasn't changed their desire to keep this development intact as single-family homes. Apple Valley still wants and expects 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard to be developed as single-family homes. What authority does the Planning Commission members have to undo what the Cottonwood Heights City Council members approved back in 2022? Why are we revisiting this again? Since the 2022 approved rezone development of single-family homes hasn't gone forward in the last 3 years, maybe it's because of the high price of the land or the lack that Mr. Nash originally put it at, or the lack of marketing behind it from the developer. It could have been developed into 3 single homes at that time. I strongly urge you to listen and to act on what has already been decided from the City Council members. Apple Valley residents were told 3 years ago that this would be developed as 3 single-family homes, and we hope that you will abide by what has been already decided. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Robbie McFarland.
Okay, my name is Robbie McFarland, and I live close to this development, and I just want to say ditto to what Mary Ellen said, and I do have one concern about parking. Is this going to have enough parking? I'm just looking at Gear Room was okayed with not enough parking, and now there are cars parked everywhere and people running across the street, and I don't think Fort Union has enough spaces to park on it if this area doesn't have enough parking. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment time for this project. As Planning Commission, do we have further deliberation?
Yeah, I think maybe just to clarify, I just am so grateful for Apple Valley, and it's one of the legacy neighborhoods in all of Cottonwood Heights, and it does have a wonderful character to it. It is the property owner's right to resubmit this every 3 years. So this is not the Planning Commission being unwilling to honor the City Council. It would actually be illegal for us not to honor consideration of the application. And in a property rights state, we have to have a fairly strong legal reason to not allow a property owner to do what is within their rights. So just as we're deliberating, I just point out that we are concerned about traffic and the ingress and egress and the ability to funnel traffic out of a single point. If we were to pass this, I think is an actual value add for the neighbors, because then you've not got 4 driveways of people coming and going, so that the residents are walking up and down that street are going to have to dodge cars. There will be one place where cars are coming and going.
Anything else? Any other?
I might just observe that one of the concerns I believe the community has is for the increased density. And I'm not a fan of increasing density, but I also realize that we're not going to get away from that. Utah, I saw in one of the reports I saw today, is one of the most attractive places in the country. We are going to have more people coming, and our density is likely to increase. I mean, these buildings are going up everywhere. So it'd be nice to go back at times to the way it used to be years ago when we all had a lot of space around us. I think those days are gone. Anyway, that's just my observation. I don't know of a good legal reason why we should not reconsider this or continue the consideration of it. Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question of staff on this. Currently within our zoning, of course, this is a low density residential zoning, but looking into the future, I know that the city has a general plan that's in place. Can you give us any insight as far as what the Fort Union Corridor's general plan is looking to the future and kind of what the goals of the city have been in the past?
Yeah, so I think the next version of the general plan will look at general areas. We have our Fort Union Boulevard master plan. We've been working to implement that. The next version of the general plan will very much continue that vision as it's being drafted now. Obviously, it's up to the city council and they can put whatever they want in there, but that focuses on identifying that areas along a busy corridor like Fort Union are different, and what makes sense down by 1300 East is a lot different than what makes sense up in this area, but also acknowledging it's a busy, collector kind of arterial type street. That's all to say, I don't think that the next version of the general plan in this area specifically is going to go in and tinker a lot with the existing land use plan. It focuses on major redevelopment opportunities like the gravel pit, like the town center, neighborhood services and things like that, but not a substantial change in vision for, on a parcel by parcel basis in these areas.
And I think what's very interesting about Fort Union specifically is the mix of density that is across the board. I mean, you have duplexes on the west side, you have multifamily, on the west side of Fort Union as well, and then a lot of high density and commercial components. So I think from a use standpoint, it seems like there's a lot of interesting adjacencies for use to justify a rezone. Now, from the city standpoint on rezones, what reasons do the commission have to deny a rezone? Is there any? I know it's all subjective, but
the threshold is different than it is for conditional uses. It is more of that health, safety, and welfare level. Is it in the best interest of the city? Can you conclude reasonable findings to support your, whatever the decision is? Obviously, the Planning Commission is just an advisory board in this role to the City Council. And then decisions can't be found to be arbitrary or capricious. So you have to have some general standards within the health, safety, and welfare context, but it's not like the conditional use purview where it's, whatever's written in code is what they're entitled. So it's a little different.
So the next steps that would have to go into place, I would imagine verifying the traffic study that's been done or the representation of the traffic impact. Has that been reviewed in this?
That happens at development application. So under the scenario that this is approved, then they would come back in and apply for a revised, subdivision plan with the R28 lots. That would go into staff review at that time, and that triggers, if necessary, a traffic study or traffic impact analysis by the city engineer.
Okay. So a development of this size may not trigger a traffic study?
It would trigger at least an analysis. It might not be a full traffic impact study, which are the really big technical studies, but at least a report by a qualified engineer to project traffic generation and roadway capacity and that kind of thing.
So in the current zoning and going into kind of the traffic study, current zoning that he has, would that rear loaded driveway be acceptable in the current zoning?
It's not prohibited. So that access would be reviewed by the fire department, and they require turnarounds or fire sprinklers if driveways like that are a certain length. And that would be part of that technical review. But as long as that driveway is within the lot standards and the homes meet setbacks, it's not prohibited to propose a rear entry drive like that. It's just going to have to be wide enough and meet, all technical code standards to support that. The main thing I can think of is fire department access and turnarounds, but they also may be able to park on Fort Union Boulevard to fight any fires, so that may not even be needed.
And I would imagine they would require additional hydrants if it was too long.
Yeah. No, they look at that for every development. Yep.
So from this standpoint, and I just want to look at this from every angle, if they were to maintain with the 3-lot subdivision, they could have an ADU. Is there a minimum or maximum square footage that those ADUs could be? Is it?
No.
So an ADU could be let's just say round numbers, 1,500 square feet. The main home could be 1,500 square feet. Is that correct?
Just the internal ADUs have to be within the footprint of the home. But our code does not define maximum size or, one family, so that, somewhat dictates how large of a group can be in there, but it doesn't say it's a minimum size or anything like that.
So if this applicant moved forward and said, I don't care to go through with this rezone, he could build 3 single-family homes with ADUs under the current zoning code.
Theoretically, yes, he cannot license the ADUs himself. The owner of ADUs have to be, the property have to be owner occupied. So the legal owner of the lot has to live on the property, and then that owner could come in and apply for an ADU. The applicant could construct the homes to make that process very easy. And we're seeing a lot of developers do that now, where they build in, ADU accommodations. But that would be ultimately on the buyer of that home that lives there to determine whether to operate that or not.
Mike, do I understand that it could be either an attached or a detached ADU?
Detached come through a conditional use process, and they have some stricter standards. It could be possible, but I don't know on these lots if there's enough space and setback to do that.
There's approximately, is it 50-foot setback?
For detached? No, it's a 20-foot rear setback for the detached building, located in the backyard, extra parking, screening and all kinds of stuff. It's hard to do detached ADUs on standard 8,000 square foot lots today.
Thank you.
Any other questions?